In the barracks, everyone laughed at her old rifle, but no one noticed the mark carved into the stock, until a young lieutenant recognized that symbol and the entire room fell silent, because that mark could only be carried by 7 people, those who had made the mathematically impossible shots. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden legends, forgotten skills, and the price of true excellence, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they never disappear again. Staff Sergeant Elena Rodriguez stepped into the barracks of Fort Bragg's Special Operations Compound with nothing but a weathered duffel bag and an old rifle case. The concrete building hummed with the low conversation of elite soldiers, men who had earned their place through blood, sweat, and countless impossible missions. She paused at the entrance, taking in the scene before her. 5 Delta Force operatives gathered around a table where Colonel Marcus Steele demonstrated the latest in precision targeting technology. Real-time ballistics calculation, Steele was saying, his voice carrying the practiced confidence of a man used to being listened to. Wind compensation, atmospheric pressure, even Coriolis effect, all calculated instantly by the scope's internal computer. Lieutenant Jake Morrison leaned forward, clearly impressed. Response time? Instantaneous, Steele replied, pride evident in his voice. Pentagon's finest engineering. The system practically guarantees the shot. Elena moved toward an empty corner, setting her case down without ceremony. The metal clasps clicked loudly in a momentary lull, drawing unwanted attention. She felt the room's focus shift to her, evaluating, judging. Steele straightened, his expression shifting from pride to something closer to amusement. Ah, our specialist support has arrived. He approached with deliberate steps, stopping before her with hand clasped behind his back. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I presume? Yes, sir, Elena replied, her voice steady and neutral. Steele's eyes dropped to her rifle case. Planning to join us on this operation? That's the order, sir. With a theatrical gesture, Steele motioned for her to open the case. Elena complied without hesitation, revealing the M40A1 nestled in worn foam. The rifle was immaculate despite its obvious age, a weapon from another era of warfare. They told me we were getting specialist support, Steele announced loudly, turning to ensure his team was watching. Didn't mention they were sending equipment from a museum. His team laughed on cue, the sound bouncing off concrete walls. Elena said nothing, closing the case with the same deliberate movements with which she'd opened it. Sergeant First Class David Parker, standing slightly apart from the others, studied Elena with quiet intensity. Unlike his colleagues, he didn't laugh. The briefing is at 1800, Steele said, turning back to his team. Our mission parameters are straightforward. Elimination of high-value cartel targets operating along the Texas border. Quick precision strikes. With all due respect, Colonel, Elena finally spoke, her voice carrying despite its quietness. I'll position on the eastern ridge. It offers the clearest line of sight to the compound. The colonel's eyebrows rose slightly. The ridge is 3 miles out. Our new targeting systems have effective range of 2,000 meters. You'll be positioned with the team at the southern approach, providing secondary support if needed. Elena nodded once, returning to her preparation. She began methodically unpacking her gear, arranging each item with practiced precision. Corporal Tommy Chen, the youngest of the team, sidled closer to her workspace. That rifle's seen better days, huh? First deployment? No, Elena replied, not looking up from her task. You always this chatty? Chen pressed, trying again. Elena paused, finally looking up at the young corporal. Something in her gaze made him take an involuntary step back. When there's something worth saying, Chen retreated to the other side of the barracks, where Morrison was calibrating his tactical goggles. What's her problem? He muttered just loud enough for Elena to hear. Some people come here to do a job, not make friends, Parker said, his voice level but carrying a subtle warning. He had moved closer to Elena, observing her methodical preparation. That M40A1 is well maintained. Elena glanced up, meeting Parker's eyes briefly. Thank you. Most prefer the newer models, Parker continued, keeping his voice conversational. Digital scopes, smart triggers. Most haven't used anything else, Elena replied. Parker's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. Fair point. Steele's voice cut through their exchange. Parker, equipment check. Make sure our targeting systems are synced for the operation. As Parker moved away, Elena continued her preparation. She laid out each round individually, examining them for imperfection before loading loading them into magazines with practiced efficiency. The movements were automatic, born of countless repetition, leaving her mind free to observe the team she'd been assigned to. They were good, she noted, professional, well-equipped, but there was an over-reliance on their technology that concerned her. They checked their battery levels more than their sight lines, trusted their targeting computers more than their instincts. Later, as darkness fell over the base, the team gathered in the briefing room. A digital display cast blue light across their faces, illuminating the target compound in satellite imagery. Steele moved through the presentation with efficiency, highlighting approach vectors and defensive positions. Intelligence suggests the compound has multiple lookout posts, Parker noted, studying the map with professional scrutiny. Standard cartel security protocol. That's why we have multiple redundant systems, Steele responded dismissively. The days of relying on outdated skills and equipment are behind us. From the back of the room, Elena made notations in a small weathered notebook. The scratch of her pencil drew Steele's attention. Something to add, Staff Sergeant? He challenged. The prevailing wind patterns in that valley create a 7 to 12 miles per hour cross-drift at distance, Elena said without looking up. Your targeting systems don't account for localized thermal updrafts. The room fell silent. Steele stiffened visibly. Our systems account for all variables. Not that one, Elena replied simply. Tension thickened the air. Chen laughed nervously. What's with the antique rifle anyway? They run out of real equipment at your last post? Elena didn't respond, but Parker noticed her gently running a thumb over something carved into the rifle's stock, something he couldn't quite make out from his position. Wind patterns in border valleys are notoriously unpredictable, Morrison offered, attempting to diffuse the tension. But our targeting systems use real-time atmospheric data. Assuming your atmospheric sensors remain operational, Elena replied quietly. Steele's jaw tightened. This operation has been planned with every contingency in mind, Staff Sergeant. We've run 23 successful eliminations with this equipment. I think we can manage one more without 19th century ballistics lessons. He turned back to the digital display, pointedly continuing the briefing as if the exchange hadn't happened. Team assignments are as follows. Morrison and Parker will handle the primary approach. Chen and Williams provide covering fire from the south position. Rodriguez and I will execute overwatch once the perimeter is secured. Elena made another notation in her notebook, her expression unchanged. The briefing continued for another hour, with Steele detailing timing, extraction routes, and emergency protocols. Throughout, Elena remained silent, observing rather than participating. As the briefing concluded, Steele dismissed the team for final preparation, but pulled Elena aside as the others filed out. I don't know what strings you pulled to get assigned here, but on my operations, we follow my lead with my equipment. Is that clear? Crystal clear, sir, Elena responded, no emotion betraying her thoughts. As she turned to leave, Morrison approached Steele. Sir, I ran a personnel check. There's almost no record of her service history, just transfer papers. It's like someone redacted her entire file. Steele's expression darkened with suspicion. Keep an eye on her tomorrow. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Unaware of this exchange, Elena made her way outside. The night air was humid and warm, crickets loud in the Carolina darkness. She found a quiet spot on the base's perimeter where the lights didn't reach and the darkness was almost complete. Only there did she allow herself a moment of stillness. From her pocket, she withdrew a folded piece of paper, her actual orders, different from what Steele believed. The mission wasn't what he'd been told. The targets weren't who he expected, but that was information he didn't need yet. She refolded the paper carefully, returning it to her pocket before making her way back to the barracks. Sleep would be necessary before tomorrow's operation, though she doubted it would come easily. It rarely did before a mission, especially one like this. In the barracks, the others were already settling in, their conversation dropping to whispers as she entered. She ignored this, moving to the bunk she'd been assigned and sitting down to remove her boots. Hey, Rodriguez, Chen called from across the room. No hard feelings about earlier, right? Just having some fun. Elena looked up, her expression unreadable in the dim light. Get some sleep, Corporal. Tomorrow will require everyone's full attention. She lay back on her bunk, closing her eyes but remaining fully alert. Years of training had taught her how to rest without truly sleeping, how to maintain awareness even while her body recovered. It was a skill few possessed anymore, replaced by stimulants and power naps timed by wrist computers. Around her, the others eventually fell silent, their breathing deepening into sleep. Only then did Elena allow herself to think about what tomorrow would bring. Not the elimination mission Steele had planned, but something else entirely. Something that would require all the skills the others had been trained to dismiss as obsolete. In the darkness, her hand moved unconsciously to her rifle case beside the bunk, fingers finding the worn leather strap, the familiar weight. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would be ready. She always was. Pre-dawn light painted the Texas landscape in shades of orange and gold as the team moved into position around the compound. compound. The air was dry and warm, and silence was maintained through hand signals and occasional whispered commands through their communication system. Elena had been assigned exactly where Steele had specified, the southern approach with Chen providing secondary support. She'd complied without argument, setting up her position methodically, checking the limited sight lines her assigned location offered. "You really think that antique can hit anything from here?" Chen whispered, adjusting his own weapon system, a fully integrated tactical platform that was essentially a computer with a trigger. "If needed," Elena replied, echoing Steele's dismissive phrase from earlier. Through their earpieces, Steele's voice came through with digital clarity. "All units in position. Command confirms targets are in the main building. Elimination team, prepare to move on my mark." Morrison's voice followed. "Perimeter security systems neutralized. We're good to—" His voice cut off abruptly, replaced by static. "Tech team, report," Steele ordered, tension evident in his voice. Nothing but crackling interference answered him. "All units, communication failure protocol. Fall back to rally point," Steele commanded, practiced calm in his voice, betraying the first hints of concern. Elena remained motionless, her eyes still at the scope of her rifle. "Did you hear the order?" Chen hissed. "We need to fall back." "You go," Elena replied calmly. "I'll maintain position." "Are you insane?" "Those are direct orders." Elena finally looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Sometimes orders change when situations do. Go." Reluctantly, Chen retreated, glancing back several times as he moved toward the designated rally point. Elena waited until he was gone, then quickly gathered her equipment and moved, not toward the rally point, but in the opposite direction toward the eastern ridge she had initially suggested. The climb was steep and would have been challenging for most, but Elena moved with the sure-footed confidence of someone who had traversed far more difficult terrain. In less than 20 minutes, she had reached her chosen position, a rocky outcropping that offered a clear view of the entire compound. She set up quickly, her movements precise and economical. The rifle was assembled and positioned with the same practiced ease with which others might tie their shoes. She settled behind it, adjusting her body to accommodate the rocky ground, finding the perfect balance between stability and comfort. Through her scope, she could see the compound stirring to life. Dawn had revealed what night had hidden. This wasn't a simple cartel operation. It was a forward operating base disguised as a drug facility, and it was preparing for action. At the rally point, the team regrouped in growing confusion. "Targeting systems are completely down," Morrison reported, frustration evident as he tried to restart his equipment. "It's like they've been hacked remotely." "They knew we were coming," Parker said quietly. "This was a trap." As if confirming his words, gunfire erupted from the compound. The team took cover behind rocky outcroppings as bullets whizzed overhead. "Return fire," Steele ordered, but their advanced weapons, so dependent on the targeting systems, were functioning at minimum capacity. "Where's Rodriguez?" Steele demanded suddenly, realizing she wasn't with them. Chen looked around in surprise. She refused to fall back, said she'd maintain position. Then a single shot rang out, distinctive, different from the automatic weapons fire surrounding them. Then another and another, precise, measured, each followed by the sound of a body falling in the distance. The hostile fire diminished rapidly, then stopped altogether. In the sudden silence, Parker pointed to the eastern ridge, exactly where Elena had suggested positioning. A tiny figure could barely be seen 3 miles out. "Impossible," Morrison whispered. "No one can hit targets at that distance without digital assistance." 12 shots, Parker counted. 12 targets neutralized. Steele stared through his binoculars in disbelief as the figure packed up and disappeared from the ridge. From her position, Elena had watched the entire scenario unfold with cold clarity. The ambush had been predictable. The compound's sudden activity, the communication system's failure, the way enemy forces had emerged exactly where they would have the best advantage against a team approaching from the south. Someone had given them information. Someone had compromised the mission. She packed up her equipment with the same efficiency with which she had set it up, then made her way down the ridge by a different route than she had ascended. She needed to reach the extraction point before the others, needed to confirm her suspicions before confronting them. The extraction vehicle was hidden in a dry wash half a mile from the compound, a nondescript SUV that could pass for civilian if necessary. Elena reached it first, as planned, and took position nearby to observe anyone who approached. She didn't have to wait long. The team appeared, moving cautiously through the terrain, still visibly shaken by what had transpired. Steele led them, his expression a mixture of anger and confusion. Only when they reached the vehicle did Elena emerge from her concealment, approaching with her rifle case in hand. "How?" was all Steele could manage when he saw her. Elena's response was to hold up a small device she'd recovered from the compound, a signal jammer that had been specifically calibrated to the frequency their equipment used. Someone told them exactly what to block. Parker approached, his expression grave. "Sir, I just received an encrypted message from command. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez has been authorized to take control of this operation." Steele's face contorted with confusion. "On whose authority?" Elena finally opened her rifle case fully, revealing the stock of the weapon. There, carved into the wood, was a distinctive mark, a crosshair surrounded by 7 stars in a perfect circle. Recognition dawned on Steele's face. He straightened immediately, color draining from his features. "The Ghost Protocol program?" he whispered. "What's that?" Chen asked, looking between them in confusion. "Not what? Who?" Parker explained quietly. "The most classified sniper program in military history. 7 confirmed operatives, over 400 impossible shots recorded." Steele, humbled now, addressed Elena formally. "Major Rodriguez, I wasn't informed of your real rank." "That's the point, Colonel," Elena responded, finally meeting his gaze directly. "Our target isn't the people you were briefed on. It's someone else entirely." The revelation hung in the air between them, transforming the dynamic of the entire team in an instant. Steele, who had been dismissive and condescending, now stood at attention, awaiting orders. The others watched in stunned silence, trying to process the implications. "The elimination was a cover," Elena continued, her voice level. "The real mission is to identify and neutralize a leak within military intelligence. Someone has been providing classified operational details to cartel forces, resulting in the loss of 4 special operations teams in the past 2 months. And you suspected someone on my team," Steele concluded, understanding dawning. "I suspected everyone," Elena corrected, "including you." Chen stepped forward, indignation overcoming his shock. "You used us as bait." "I used a controlled scenario to expose a pattern," Elena replied calmly. "No one was at real risk. I maintained overwatch throughout." "Those 12 shots," Morrison said slowly. "You took out their entire offensive force from 3 miles away without targeting assistance." "The Ghost Protocol program wasn't about technology," Parker explained, his voice carrying a hint of awe. "It was about transcending it, operating when all systems fail." Elena neither confirmed nor denied this. Instead, she turned to the matter at hand. "The leak isn't on your team, Colonel. It's higher up the chain. Someone with access to mission parameters and equipment specifications." "How can you be sure?" Steele asked. "Because the signal jammer was specifically calibrated to your equipment's unique frequency signature," Elena explained. "That information isn't included in standard mission briefing. It would require direct access to your unit's technical specification, which means someone at command level," Steele realized. "Exactly," Elena confirmed. "Someone who knew I was being assigned to your team, who tried to ensure we'd be in a compromised position when the ambush hit." She turned to the SUV, opening the rear door. "We need to move. The next phase of the operation begins now." "What's the next phase?" Morrison asked, still struggling to adjust to this new reality. "We're going to find the person who tried to get us killed," Elena replied simply. "And we're going to do it without using any of the systems they can monitor." The team exchanged glances, a mixture of uncertainty and determination crossing their faces. They had trained with the most advanced technology available, had come to rely on it for every aspect of their operations. The prospect of working without it was disconcerting. "How?" Chen asked finally. Elena's expression remained impassive. "The old way. Observation, deduction, skill. Your Ghost Protocol training," Steele said, understanding. "Part of it," Elena acknowledged. "The rest you'll learn as we go." She gestured to the vehicle. "We need to move north into the hill country. Our next target is there, and he'll have answers we need." "Who is the target?" Parker asked as they began loading equipment. Elena's gaze was steady. "General Marcus Kane, the man who designed your targeting systems before he retired 2 years ago." "Kane is retired," Morrison said automatically, "living in San Antonio." "That's what you were meant to believe," Elena replied. "The truth is more complicated." As they prepared to depart, Steele approached Elena privately. "I owe you an apology, Major. I made assumptions based on equipment rather than ability. A common mistake," Elena replied without rancor. "One the enemy is counting on." "The Ghost Protocol program," Steele said hesitantly. "I've heard rumors, but never thought I'd actually meet one of you. Most don't know when they do," Elena responded. "That's rather the point." She closed her rifle case, securing it in the vehicle before turning back to him. "Your team has potential, Colonel. They're skilled, dedicated, but they've been taught to trust technology over instinct, systems over senses. And now we need to unlearn that," Steele concluded. "Quickly," Elena agreed, "because where we're going, none of your equipment will function. It will be just us, the terrain, and the enemy." Steele nodded, new respect evident in his demeanor. "We're ready to learn, Major." "Good," Elena replied, climbing into the vehicle, "because class begins now." As they drove north into the Texas Hill Country, Elena began to explain what they would face. Not just an enemy who knew their technology, but someone who had helped design it, someone who understood their weaknesses better than they did themselves. But Elena had something the enemy didn't expect. 7 people who had learned to succeed when everything else failed. 7 people who had made the impossible shots. And now, she was about to remind the world why that still mattered. The Ghost Protocol wasn't just about marksmanship. It was about being ready when technology failed, when systems broke down, when everything went wrong. It was about the human element that no computer could replicate. And Elena Rodriguez was living proof that sometimes the old ways were still the best ways. The SUV disappeared into the Texas hills, carrying a legend who had been forgotten by most but never stopped serving. In a rifle case, the carved symbol caught the afternoon light, 7 stars around a crosshair, marking someone who had achieved the impossible. Because sometimes the most important shots aren't the ones that hit their target. Sometimes they're the ones that remind everyone what's still possible when you stop relying on machines and start trusting the warrior within. Elena had made her impossible shot long ago. Now she was teaching others that the human spirit, properly trained and properly applied, could still accomplish things no technology could match. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the hills, but it wasn't a storm approaching. It was the sound of a legend going back to work.